How's it going, everybody? Today we're going to be getting in what I would call, I guess, the first episode of Deck Building 101 type of thing, and this is just the basics, how you're going to choose a deck. So let's get right into it. So, the beginning of how to build a deck, obviously you need some ideas. Sometimes they're difficult to come by. And the idea of this video is to sort of help you understand or help you figure out where you should think about in regards to what deck you want to build. The reason I started making this deck is because I recently finished a deck that I have been wanting to play for a very long time, which is Kashtira. And I've known I wanted to play it for a very long time. Therefore, I kind of felt like there might be other people who could benefit with the logic behind it. So we are going to have to talk about a lot of stuff today. It's going to be quite a long-winded video, but we're going to try and do as much visual aid as possible. The Kashtira deck that I finished is here. This is the one I'm currently playing the most of. It is not perfect by any means. However, how did I arrive to this? Well, this is going to be tip number one. And you're just going to have to take your current skill level into consideration. You of course can always get better at the game and play more and more complex decks, but if you're new to the game or if you're not sure about the meta and stuff like that, your best option is to play something as easy as possible with a very sort of linear path to where you need to go with the deck, just so that you have an option to continue working with it. And you want to climb a little bit so that, because when you first start the game, when you start playing in the low ranks like bronze and silver and even some of gold, most people aren't going to be a very high skill level. They will miss their timings, they will ash the wrong thing, they'll do things that will leave them vulnerable, which is what a higher skill person would recognize and be able to capitalize on. So take your current skill level into consideration and be as honest with yourself as possible, because that's going to give you the most benefit, if you want to say it like that. And even I'm guilty of it. Like, I can show you right here. Before I built Kashtira, I talked about it, I think, in one of my previous videos. I do have a completed, pretty much, Snake Eye Fire King deck right here. But this deck, skill cap, is way too high for me to even come close to doing what I need to do with it. Like, I genuinely don't understand what I'm doing with this deck. So I had to sort of leave it in the dust. I haven't decrafted it, but I had to sort of leave it in the dust and say, okay, I can't play this. And just sort of move on to something else, which is now Kashtira. I find to be much more, in my mind, much easier. Tip number two, and this is going to tie in a little bit with the past tip. You're going to figure out your reasoning to play the game. Now, the situation is everyone plays the game for a different reason. Some people like it to be fun. Other people like it to be like competitive. They want to climb high rank. Even just a simple reason like I want to get better as a duelist. There are many different reasons, and identifying what it is your goal with the game is will also help. For me personally, I've spoken about it multiple times in previous videos. I don't mind not being in the highest ranks personally. I've never done a climb. Let me know in the comments actually if you do want to see me try to climb a ladder in a month, for example, or something. But yeah, you kind of want to figure out what exactly is the reasoning for playing the game. For me, I like to have some fun, and in my mind, I think of Yu-Gi-Oh as kind of like a 10-dimensional chess where you have 40 chess pieces and your opponent has 40 to 60 chess pieces, and you're sort of strategically moving the pieces to try to get the win, which is why I play Kashtira at this point in time, because I've noticed I really like a control deck, a deck that sort of lets me play this sort of chess game to a certain extent. Not to say Kashtira isn't oppressive, it can be, but it's one of those things where the Kashtira deck in itself is supposed to be a control deck. But knowing what you want to do, if you want to climb really high, you want to obviously pay very close attention to the meta. You're going to probably want to sit down and learn the combos, like for a Snake Eye Fire King, like a Yubel, various things like that. So yeah, you kind of need to think about what it is you're doing with the game and why you're playing it. If you just want to have some fun, build sort of whatever and try things, but obviously resource management is a thing and we'll talk about it in this video as well. But identify what it is you want to play or what it is you want to achieve, and sort of remember that along with your skill level. That's the next tip. Third tip is play the game. Easy enough to say, I know, but play the game knowing you're going to lose. It doesn't matter in the early ranks. If you lose, sometimes you'll have an event where you'll be able to test things. This Extreme Duel, for example, it's basically just regular Yu-Gi-Oh, except you need to let your opponent see your hand on your turn and you see theirs on their turn. It's not the end of the world. It was very quickly finished for me. But you know, use what's available to play the game. I would argue, and this is going to sound a little bit like a hot take, but don't use the what's it called, the casual mode. The reason why is because casual mode is basically nobody cares, which means if one thing goes wrong, people will they'll just leave. And on top of that, you won't get a good idea of what's meta, which is kind of, you know, something that is important in a game like this. There is a reason why things are meta and other things aren't. Casual match is where people go to play things that aren't very meta. So you want to first off avoid bringing a meta deck in. They will leave. And then on the second point, obviously, you want to learn your deck and you want to, you know, do things, but don't be afraid to lose. Because if you don't lose and you don't see where your deck stumbles, you'll never be able to increase it. And you won't get an idea for the meta if you stay completely out of ranked or the events. So definitely try the events and try the ranked, except this event. Duelist Cup is just, it's annoying as annoying as hell, really. That's a whole other video. We can talk about Duelist Cup and how horrible these past events have been. However, for now, yeah, stay in ranked if you can. If there's an event that's supposed to be a bit more fun, try your deck there as well. But don't be afraid to lose is, I guess, the biggest point. Yeah, just let it go and see what happens. The most important thing, arguably, is figuring out the type of deck you want to play. And that's going to be, I'm going to put a list up here somewhere on the screen about the various different types, because there are very many different types of decks you can play, and in those types there are different archetypes inside Yu-Gi-Oh you can play, and it can get very convoluted, but there are overarching archetypes of what type of deck it is. As I mentioned previously, Kashtira is a control deck, and that's the kind of playstyle I'm enjoying at the moment, but there are various different types, you know, aggro, combo, control, stun, FTK, mid-range, mill, draw. There'll be a list on the screen right now, probably already up, of the different types and a small description of what they do, so you can sort of get an idea of if there's one of them that you particularly like more than the others, so that you know what to go for next. But yeah, you want to identify what the type of deck you want to do, because once you identify that, you can sort of branch off. Like, I know I like control with Kashtira, I can branch off to, for example, Dark Magician control or something like that, where it's a similar deck playstyle but not the same deck itself, if you know what I mean. Identifying the type of deck, checking it out, what it is going to be, is huge. It will make deck choosing a lot easier. Next, this is going to be a two-parter. This part, resource management is key, absolutely key. Your UR dust, your super rare dust, and your gems. Resource management is key when it comes to building a deck. So in that regard, you want to ideally use gems first. There's no secret, gems are the most abundant resource we get. As previously spoken about in one of my other videos, you're only guaranteed 10 UR dust inside of 20 packs. Bear that in mind. If your deck is chock block full with URs, you need to be careful about what you craft and what you try to pull for. So use your gems first, ideally in packs of 10 or 20. However, if there does come a point where it eclipses over to just use your dust, and by that point is, for example, in my Kashtira deck, I need to do it. A Rise Heart, I only have 2, I need 3, I need 4, I need 3 of them. And the difficulty becomes, I only need the last Arise Heart. Am I gonna go ahead and pull from the secret pack to try and get it? You know, the Warrior of Seething Anger? Probably not. The likelihood of me getting him in this set of 10 is quite low. So my best bet is probably just craft him and save those gems for another time where I have a pack that I have many cards I need. So there comes a cutoff point, and you need to be aware of where that is. I typically wait until I have, if I only need like 1 or 2 more URs from a pack, I just go, okay, I need to craft them, because if I go ahead and open packs and it ends up being not the URs I needed or whatever, it becomes more difficult anyway. It all depends on how many cards you need from a certain pack. But with that in mind, with the resource management in mind, you also, this is the second part, you want to keep in mind that secret packs come like relatively often. I have been waiting to build Kashtira since I first played against it, pretty much. So, I mean, we're talking almost a little bit over a year. And now that it had a secret pack is when I built it. If you have to hard craft everything, you're gonna have a bad time. So try to pay attention. If you find a deck that you like and you can see there are a lot of cards you need to hard craft, or if the whole archetype at the moment is only in master packs, it becomes more difficult, a lot more, because then suddenly you need 3 URs for each 1 UR card you actually want, and then it becomes just a whole host of other problems, and resource management goes out the window. So try to be patient and make it through, if you want to say it like that, until you get a chance to build it from a secret pack, because that is the cheapest way to go about it. So yeah, that's resource management. Keep it in mind when you're building a deck. Now we're talking about not starting too many decks at once, and I'm guilty. Everyone raise your hands. Raise your hands if you've built, or if you've started more than 1 deck at a time. Raise your hands. I'll raise both. I'm terrible for it. And it's a problem I think everybody, or quite a few people, have, in that they will start building a deck. Let's say, for example, Shark here, and they won't finish it. Like, I need quite a few Shark decks, Shark bits here in the in the extra deck. I need quite a few Shark stuff. So definitely worth thinking to finish a deck before you move on. Not to mention, obviously, if you start building multiple decks, you'll never be able to master the decks you currently have. Perfect example, my Snake Eye Fire King. I don't know how it works. I'm half thinking to just completely scrap it and disenchant everything, make it into dust again. However, I'm not doing that just yet. But yeah, the point is, don't start multiple things and then go and build something else. You want to finish it, number one, and once you finished it, you want to give it a really fair shake to actually try to understand how the deck works. That's going to be the best way to go about it. Typically speaking, Branded is a deck that I think I've talked about it before. It's a deck that I've wanted to build since the very beginning, since I started playing. It was the strongest deck when I started playing back in last year, I think it was. I never finished it. I never even came close. There are some pieces of Branded in here, just a couple, but there really isn't, a whole lot, which is where things become problematic in general, because you start, again, it's sort of resource management. You start spreading your resources very thin, and then you end up in a situation where the resources are not enough to finish any of your decks, and then you have problems. Last tip, well, second to last tip, is crafting priority. I also happen to have a Fluandereeze deck. This is not by any means an optimal one. I haven't finished it yet, but Dimension Shifter got crafted for this and for Kashtira. Picking cards that fit in multiple of your decks and crafting them first is useful. It kind of goes, staple, and then cards that you need for multiple decks, and then you craft the ones that you desperately need for the deck itself, like the actual archetypal deck. Just a small tidbit there. Lastly, this is the last tip. We're going to get going. I'll show you a replay of the Kashtira deck versus Yubel, just so you get some gameplay in this video. But make alternate accounts if you want or need to. And this is going to be, again, sort of resource management, but also a testing ground. So when you start an alternate account or when you start a new account in Master Duel, Konami just shoves you full of gems. They just give you gems for everything you do. Click a button, get gems, pretty much, right? You use that to your advantage and you use it to start building gems in the second account to pull from packs or try to craft the deck you want to play in your main account. It will give you an idea of if it's worth it for you to have that, you know, effort that you're going to have to put into it. I did this with Fluanderies in my secondary account, and I found out that I enjoyed Fluanderies enough to be like, I want to bring it to my main account. Fluanderies obviously is a typically very cheap deck in comparison to a lot of other decks, but it was still something at the time I couldn't afford, and I really wanted to see if it was going to be worth it because I had a secret pack. So I did, and I decided to do it. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, that if you wanted to make multiple accounts, and you can choose to just have these multiple accounts and go ahead and use these particular accounts for these particular decks. I'm of the opinion that I prefer having a main account where it's like, this is where I do most of my stuff. Oh, I can play this deck on this account if I want to, but this is where everything stays on my main account, which is also linked to a Konami ID, etc. But having that in mind, and if you need to go and test a deck, you can make a new account and make it, is pretty good. I will leave you with one replay. It was not a super long one, but we can talk about, I think this is the one here, with against Yubel. I played Kashtira against Yubel, I believe. This was in the event, I want to say. I don't know for sure, I'm not going to lie. I can't remember. But he chose to go second. Ah, yes, this I think was in the event. Now, immediately my hand looks really bad. Definitely, I'm not liking this at all. But I figure, all right, Planet Pathfinder, go ahead, bait the Ash potentially, otherwise get Planet Raitsoth. Raitsoth goes off, you get Unicorn. At this point, it's full combo. Pretty much, unless I screw up, which I think I actually might have done. But anyway, we go ahead, we go full sort of Kashtira things into Shangri-Era here. This is something you learn as you play. This is kind of, I haven't been playing Kashtira for very long, but as you go through it, you sort of understand the combo timings and stuff. But I do believe it was Yubel, this deck that I played against here. We get the Shangri-Era effect, we get to put Fenrir back on field, we get to start blocking stuff, and I destroyed mine. I don't know why I did that. It doesn't matter which one is destroyed or not. But we go into a Rise Heart here, into defense mode, set 2 and pass. Now, this is where, yes, this is the Yubel thing, and I was actually really worried when I saw Yubel. I was like, this is my first time playing against it, so I was a little bit, oh no, I'm gonna have problems. So we ended up winning, as we can spoil it and say we won, but we were I was very worried, and it was actually quite close at one point. So yeah, they go ahead and do some Yubel stuff. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how Yubel works, and I haven't done enough ranked climb. I think most high elo people are like using Yubel nowadays, but I'm sitting in like silver gold, so I don't want to, I'm choosing not to try to climb. Like I said, comments below if you want to see an attempt at a climb, let me know. The game is sort of playing out here. He's using Phantom of Yubel, and he has Nightmare Pain. I don't know where the choke points in Yubel's deck are, and I don't know where what to negate, what to banish, what's the most important pieces. So I'm sort of just going off of what I think will be a problem for me. I should have probably gotten rid of Nightmare Pain there, to be fair. That was my mistake. Anyway, we start trying to block off his deck, as Kashtira does. Kashtira is a deck that kind of wants to dictate your opponent can't do this, you can't use spells, you can't use traps, yada yada. So we're blocking things, we're absorbing things, we're trying to get we're trying to starve our resources, and there you can see we get rid of the Nightmare Pain, we absorb it into a Rise Heart. He goes Samsara D Lotus here, brings out Spirit of Yubel, something got banished, so we get to suck it with a Rise Heart. So he gets another Nightmare Pain. This is what's good, and this is why you play the game. Now I know Nightmare Pain is like the most important Yubel card. So he almost kills me here with my 3400 defense Shangri-Ira. He destroys everything on field except my Shangri-Ira. So I go ahead and I'm thinking to myself, all right, that's not very nice. So evenly matched on my side. I have Ash Blossom. I'll grab my Unicorn. Unicorn grabs a Rise Heart. We then hear sort of it's over. Like this point, I think they might surrender here, if I'm not mistaken, because I can go full combo again. Get rid of his Little Knight. No, he doesn't actually surrender. That's my bad. I blocked his stuff. I add a spell to my hand, Kashtira Birth. This is what I like about Kashtira as well. Kashtira doesn't mind having a big bang like that because you can sort of rebuild your board slowly depending on what you have. We get another Rise Heart. At this point, it's GG's. I'm kind of winning more. It's my bad. I'm just still learning the deck. I wouldn't classify myself as like a Kashtira master or anything, but I do win. You can tell by the board. Like this is already 9,000 attack. So all I'm doing now is just extra. And there they surrender. They're like, okay, enough of this. Kashtira, I absolutely love the playstyle. That's my personal preference. But this is what I'm saying. You want to have a deck. If you follow the tips in this video, you will end up in a situation where you have a deck where you feel really accomplished and really like, I love to play this deck, and that will help you play the game more, etc, etc. So I definitely would say try and follow the tips in this video that I've given you. Try and find a deck that really speaks to you, really matches with you, and then you go ahead and you play the deck, learn the deck, and hopefully you'll find a deck that you are very satisfied with. Thank you so much for watching. Drop a comment, let me know the deck that you're currently playing, and also keep in mind the likes and the comments and the subscribes, they do help smaller channels like mine, so please do consider subscribing. There will be plenty more Yu-Gi-Oh content with other content too. We'll get into that in another video, but there will be other stuff that's not just Yu-Gi-Oh or card games. We can play regular games too in this channel. So I'll see you guys in the next video, and be safe until then. Bye bye.